Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place today, Thursday, May 21st, 2020, beginning at 10 a.m. Via a virtual conference. So we are happy to have this technology that will allow us to meet. We'll now do a roll call so that we can establish who from both boards are attending. Of course, we'll start with Community Board 1.
Patrick Lofton, District Manager, Board 1.
Okay, Community Board 2.
Good morning, everyone. Ralph Acevedo, District Manager, Bronx Community Board 2.
Community Board 3. Okay. Okay, Community Board 4.
Good morning, everyone. District Manager, Community Board 4.
And Kathleen Saunders, Chair of Community 4.
You're welcome. Community Board 5.
Good morning, everyone. This is Ken Brown, District Manager of the Community.
Thank you. Your sound is a little bit low, but
I'm trying not to wake my wife.
then I removed the comment. You're better off keeping it low. Community Board 6. Hearing no response. Community Board 7.
Aisha Bravo, District Manager, Community Board 7. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Happy to have you. Community Board 8.
Good morning, Kira Gannon, District Manager.
Good morning, Laura Spalter, Vice Chair.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Community Board 9.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Shirley San Andres Alonso, Assistant District Manager.
Okay, thank you. Community Board 10.
Good morning, Matt Cruz, District Manager.
Good to see you.
Joe Russo, Chairman of the Board.
Oh, I like that. Chairman of the board. Wasn't that Frank Sinatra?
Used to be.
Okay, I get the reference. Community Board 11.
Chair, Community Board 11. Jeremy Warnicki, District Manager. I don't have video on this laptop I'm using.
Thank you for the effort. Community Board 12.
Good morning. This is George.
George. Okay, Community Board 12. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. On the Community Board side. Let's see if we can mute everybody.
I am trying to.
Kathleen's. Kitty Saunders.
Yes.
Mute your microphone. Looks like there we go.
Okay, so we're back in business.
Yes.
Okay, representatives or from Council Member Ayala's office.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is Gilberto Alvarado from Member Diana Ayala's office.
Hi, good to see you. Welcome. Council Member Cohen's office.
Good morning. My name is Fatumata Tankara, and I'm representing Member Andrew Cohen's office.
Hi, great to see you. Councilmember King's office? Okay, hearing none. Councilmember Jonai's office?
Good morning. This is Farah Rubin representing Councilmember Mark Jonai's office. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Councilmember Cabrera's office? Okay, Councilmember Richie Torres' office? Okay, Councilmember Gibson's office?
This is Stacy Strong with the Office of Councilmember Gibson. Were you able to hear me? I'm going to dial back in.
I don't hear either Mr. McShane or Deputy Borough President Scott McFadden.
The same on my end.
Yeah, Chris, we don't hear you. We have Erica Downing from Department of Health. Fire Department.
Richard Velez, Community Affairs, Fire Department.
DOT.
Mr. Cruz, DOT.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Teresa Cruz, DOT.
Marisol, the deputy asked if we could just start the presentation, just given the time, if that's all right.
Sure. And Deputy, since I just got word that the commissioner has to leave at 11. So do we want to switch up the order of the presentations?
I'm fine with that, Marisol.
You're fine with?
With the switch, I'm sorry. I'm DCWP, I'm okay with the switch if the commissioner has to go first. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So we have 3 items on the agenda. We're going to move to the second item, which is the overview of services for businesses. And we are joined by Commissioner Janelle Torres from the Department of Small Business Services, and Marlene Cintron, the president of the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation. So we want to start with Marlene, if I know she has a few brief remarks, and then we'll move on to the commissioner. Marlene? Okay, Commissioner, you're on. We'll get back to Marlene.
Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning out of your schedules, but also for having us SBS here. Here are some of our team members. We'll have to, as mentioned, leave at 11, but wanted to make sure that some of our team members are here, and they will be able to also answer questions. We have Magdalena Aristi, we have Sarah Evers and Janet Figuerio. They will all be here to make sure that whatever questions come up, additional questions, we'll be able to answer it. I just want to thank again also our Deputy Borough President for the invitation, and the entire team who are working with our Borough President, and also our Borough President, really thanking him for over the years being a great partner. Listen, my work here as a new appointed Commissioner of New York City Small Business Services Department, I wanted to just reach out really to let you know that we're here for you. We have a 5-borough strategy that we've started to really deepen our work within the boroughs, particularly after the COVID crisis. And as Commissioner, one of my first things that we've been doing is focusing on the Bronx. The Bronx, of course, is a vital part of our economy, but also really a vital part of our city. And we are retooling our efforts and doubling down on our efforts to make sure that the Bronx gets the services and the attention that it needs, and rightfully so deserves. As this pandemic started, many of you know we started a few programs that we quickly got up and running, and were able then to pivot our resources to the federal government, because the federal government put out really in 2 tranches a $700 billion plan to help small businesses. And so a lot of what we've been doing as SBS is connecting a lot of our small businesses all over the city, really primarily focusing on areas of what we call LMI areas, or areas that is hardest hit, low moderate income areas, to make sure that those businesses are getting the resources that they need. So what we've been doing is providing technical services and assistance, webinars, we've been doing as well, and financial assistance, one-on-one TA, and also letting folks know, listen, that if you need a job, our agency is also working through our Workforce One centers. If you need a job, we've did about 25,000 folks we've helped last year through that process. And we're very excited about that. We're still operating. Folks are looking for job seekers. Also for those who are looking for assistance with their businesses. Our business solution centers are also working remotely. We have connected folks over $60 million worth of assistance so far, and we want to continue to help these small businesses grow. We have 40 lenders in our network, and we want to make sure that we are able to see what the businesses need, and then begin to connect them to the lenders who best fit their profile. And so not only workforce, not only sort of the recovery and disaster loans programs and grant programs, but also connecting you to traditional lending to make sure that you have what you need to really survive and come out of this crisis really on top, and also with the ability to come back and then thrive as businesses. We also are, tackled the challenge of rent. A lot of our small businesses, even though there's a moratorium right now on evictions, there's nothing out there for sort of rent relief. And so one of the things that we've been doing is our commercial lease assistance program. And that program helps with rent deferrals, abatement, reduction, and other actions that business owners need in order to stay alive and stay within their premise, really, and have a physical space, those who need it, in order for them to continue to do business. And also, as time becomes where we reopen, that they're already there to do business and don't have to look for new places and so forth and so on. So that is there if you need help. You need help on the legal side and also renegotiate your lease with your landlord. We do have the commercial lease assistance program, which we are also working with. And by the way, we do have a slide with a lot of this information on it. We'll make sure it gets out to everyone so that you can be able to send your constituents where they need to go. Again, I just want to just stop there because I know you may have a few questions our time is short, but look, we're here for you. Please make sure that you know that SBS is here and we're here to help. We have our teams working in the boroughs. We have our teams working in the Bronx. We have folks, we're open and we're ready to assist you and give you whatever assistance you need and the constituents that you serve need. And so please be sure, again, our contact and also all the information sort of abbreviated in what I discussed today. We have a slide and we can get that to you. But I'll stop there because I know before I leave, maybe folks want to ask a few questions, but we'll stop there, Chris and our deputy. We'll stop there and let you all take it from there. And we're happy to answer some of those questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I
I'm
can
back.
throw that slide. Oh, good.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can throw that slide up on the screen for a second. And then as we went over at the beginning of the meeting, if anybody has any questions for the commissioner, please just use that raise hand function. Community Board 5. Ken, right? Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm unmuted. Good morning, Commissioner. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
These trying times, we certainly need you. One of the things that I think is most vital at this moment is access to data. And in particular, how can you help us get, or help direct me, how to get data on the rate of applications by small businesses for relief grant program. In particular, is there data available? Could you make data available on the numbers of businesses that have made applications, the length of time to process them, acceptance and denial rates, and preferably on a graphic basis?
I'm sorry, I having some audio channel, but I do get the gist of the point of about the data and trying to get I guess a readout on how businesses are faring in the Bronx. This is overall. I mean, and it said there's some challenges on the federal side. I know because we've been working with the federal partners around their PPP programs and other programs and trying to get New York specific data, which by the way, we don't have. They only give state data, and so that's a big challenge. But I'm having some meetings with them this week and next. We're hoping to get some of that because then it will help me, right, in my job, because then I can focus where I need to actually give the resources and additional support. So I definitely hear you on that. And, I'm hoping I can get your information so that I can be responsive to you. So maybe someone will make sure that I get that from you, and then we can be responsive back to you and the team about whatever we find out. Okay.
Oh, and just one last thing. I and Community Board 4 are part of the Jerome Avenue rezoning, and I just want to thank Janet, who is the zoning coordinator. I forgot her title.
Yes,
she has been a vital component in that corridor. just want to compliment you.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure Janet is on the call, by the way, so she's hearing you. So thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, thank you. I think there was a couple more. Cedric Lofton, I'll unmute your line. You had your hand raised.
First of all, congratulations, Commissioner, on your appointment.
Thank you,
Look forward
Cedric.
to working with you.
Thank
We
you.
have in our district, which is District 1, we have the 3rd Avenue Business Improvement District.
Yes.
Thank you so much for mentioning the concern that we have related to rent. However, the larger context of that is also related to business insurance and coverage. We know that the issue of rent is now somewhat on hold, but our concern is that will that coverage still be there for our businesses as far as their insurance? As you know, in the past, the Bronx had to deal with hard times, and times like this, sometimes you have an issue with coverage on insurance. You know, in the past, there were issues that happened. Businesses did not have insurance when certain negative things did happen. So within the context of the programs that come out your department, do you have any additional coverage that you can lay on top of insurance that may be lost in this period because businesses cannot cover that as far as their finances?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So, you know, right now, as you may know, the insurance industry has not listed the COVID-19 pandemic as a covered event, which is insane. They are literally sitting on $800 billion in reserve, and they have not listed this as part of their business interruption insurance as a covered event. And so if there's something that I am really, really passionate about, sorry, I didn't say it in my opening remarks because I just try to truncate everything, is that we have to figure out a way to get them to do that. So we've been talking to our federal partners, and we need you to help us. The former commissioner, Greg Bishop, who's a great friend, is now our COVID-19 small business czar, essentially, for the city. And part of his role is also reaching out on these levels. But we need to start, and I hope we can do it starting with the Bronx first, where we can say, let's get a letter writing campaign together and put some pressure on the federal government to do something here. You know, this happened, I believe, after 9/11 as well. They did not cover after 9/11 until there was pressure put on the industry, and then they changed it to have a covered event. So I hear you 100% on what you're saying, and I really, really want to make sure that we do this. In the slide we shared, I believe we have some information as how we can do that, but I feel like if you all are on the ground, you're touching these businesses in the communities. Let us get some, let's get together and do a campaign, a letter writing campaign. We've already put something out in Crane's Business on this. We are pushing, I'm speaking again, I think later today with some other forums that we're bringing this up. And so we really need you to help us with the drumbeat, because the insurance industry, I think at this time has an obligation to our small businesses, and we need to put some pressure on them. So I appreciate that comment. The action item I would present is one, we're going to get back to you all in this group with some sort of a campaign that we can do, right? Along with the Borough President office to really target our federal partners to really help us in this effort. So I'm with you 100% on that. And if we can figure out a way to do that together, that would be great.
Thank you.
All right, I know we had another question or two, or possibly more. Next one on the list, Chiara Gannon. I'll unmute the line.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner, very much. I also wanted to thank your office. Somebody is going to be coming to our economic development meeting next week, so that's going to be very helpful to us and our local businesses. I just had a question regarding the data. First, that would be very important, like Ken Brown pointed out. We've been searching for data just to help out, just to see who's applied, who's been approved, who's been denied, and how we can further help them. But my question is, I read somewhere that the Bronx only received 1% of funding or assistance, and I think part of that is because of the low application rate. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and how you're working to do outreach to merchants that might not be able to get connected to some of the webinars and some of the great things that you guys are doing? Thank you.
Yes, you mentioned some previous programs that occurred. So I'll back up quickly and just do a quick overview and say where we are. So the city, when the pandemic started, released a few programs to help support small businesses, particularly those who are, less than 4 employees. At least for that particular program that you're mentioning, we were able to stand up a program very quickly and got out in the community. And some of our local partners, we engaged quite a bit of them to really, as you said, get the word out, but also try to get as many folks to apply. And so there is certainly, so we have about 8% or so of the businesses in the city who qualify for that grant to be Bronx residents and Bronx businesses. And at the time, I think there was, you probably heard that report, there was 1% that came out, et cetera, of folks who received it. But the challenge again is how many folks did apply, right? And so I think at that point is where we know we have to change the way that we actually do outreach, because if we do it, as you mentioned, very, very generally speaking to folks all over the city, our businesses in certain communities, sort of do business differently, and we have to change the way we do outreach to them. And so that's what we've been doing. And so since that program has finished, we sort of pivoted our resources to the federal programs that are there. And those federal programs are really important because, again, there's $700 billion. And by the way, there's only 100 billion left, but it's still a lot of money for the local businesses. And so what we're doing is the webinars are important, but we're also doing webinars in multiple languages, right? So we've changed and adjusted a bit. We're making sure that on a weekly basis that we are doing that and connecting folks to a lot of the federal programs and the other programs that we have. We have 40 lenders that we work with. We're also connecting small businesses to that. So I hear you on the challenges that we previously had with previous programs in reaching our small businesses, particularly in the Bronx. And by the way, this is day number, I don't know, the days are running in between, over each other now. Days number 8 or 9 or something, but a significant amount of my time has been spent with Bronx businesses, with Bronx organizations, and with Bronx media and so forth, so that that we are committed to the Bronx and finding ways to resolve some of those challenges that you've mentioned that we're working through. So anyway, I'm happy to get a little bit more in the weeds with you all on some of our activities, but I just want to say that we can't do it without you. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to hear from you. And I know where we should be going because I've been listening and I will continue to do so, but we will be tailor-made services, to the challenges that our Bronx businesses are dealing with. And we're here also to help you, to help us spread the word about our resources. Again, we have it up on that slide for you. Let folks know, the folks that we need to get to. Please let them know we are here to help them. SBS is here, and we want to support them in making sure that they come back and be able to thrive.
All right. I know we've got at least one more hand raised, and just as a quick note for anyone who's in the meeting, the information that the commissioner has shared with us in that PowerPoint slide, we can share with everyone in the meeting after the fact. And those resources, we'll make sure that they're up on our website, on our COVID resources page as well. So if you are in the meeting we'll get them to you. If you're watching this or you just want to get them from our website, we'll make sure to get those up there as well. So the next hand raised that I see is John Dudley. John, I'll unmute your line and you can go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner. How you doing? Once again, welcome for your appointment, or congratulations rather for your appointment. I just got a quick question regarding the funding. You mentioned $700 billion of funding that was committed from the federal government, right, since the onset, excuse me, of COVID-19. Was that federal money in general, or was it for New York City exclusively, or what? Because I know you mentioned $100 billion was left, but is it for New York City? Was it for New York City, all the $700 billion, or was that for?
That's the general fund that the federal government, are part of the $2 trillion that they had released so far. That's part of that national program that we are part of.
Okay, how much did New York City get out of that?
The state, I believe, 281,000 businesses received $37.8 billion. As I mentioned to the previous our previous participant, they did not release data by municipality. That's the issue that we have on the federal government side. We don't know the data down to that level, and they don't release it. The Treasury has not, SBA has not.
So let me just say, just as a point of clarification, Commissioner, you're saying $37.8 billion came from the feds to the state of New York, and then the state issues a portion of that or all of that to New York City? Is that because you mentioned $37.8 billion associated with the state? Was that federal money given to the state, and then does the state? Just let me get some perspective.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry. I apologize. Sometimes we speak because we are in it all the time, so we know it. So let me just explain the program. So the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program, and that program was a program that came out of the federal stimulus package. That program goes to businesses directly. It doesn't go to the state or municipalities directly to repurpose out to businesses. This is a direct allocation to businesses. 25% of that loan that you would get from them, it's a 1% loan. 25% of that loan will be for overhead and expenses such as rent and utilities. 75% of it is for you to retain your employees, to pay them while we're going through this crisis, okay? Mm-hmm. And so when I say $37 billion came to the state, they know through the application process where folks are from and where the money is going by state. The federal government has not broken that down of where the money's gone to in the businesses in a particular state to the municipality level. And so all we have is state data level. And as I said, and agree with the other participant, like we don't know who received the funds. And if we're not, if we're not careful, we are missing folks who've applied and we don't know if they got anything. Okay. And so that's the gap in the data that like I said, I have meetings with the SBA this week and next, the federal government. We've been talking to our elected officials too about the transparency on that data. So I know where I need to target the city's resources and to help our businesses.
Okay, but so from let me just ask you this: does the Business Solutions administer or execute loans against the federal money that went to the state? In other words, does Business Solutions provide loans or grants related to the money we're talking about?
Yeah, so I would say, one, we have 40 lenders that we work with. Right. Those 40 lenders are a part of our network, and we work with them and our small businesses to connect them to those financial institutions. What that means is we help them with the application, We help them find them, and then we make sure that we did about $70 million worth of that last year in transactions. But we're not a bank, and also we're not issuing the money. It's coming from those financial institutions.
So
Yeah. So listen, we're happy to come back on and do it seems like Deputy Borough Director and Chris and team, we want to come back and probably do a more in-depth TA session. Some of our folks about how we work as a city, but also how the market works, how the federal works, grant work, program works. We're happy to do that, and we'll take the session, and I'll bring our experts on, and everyone can be able to, really have a good conversation, because we want to make sure that the businesses in the Bronx and those of you who work with them, right, like John and others, we want to make sure you guys have what you need and to do that. So I'm happy to come back, and our outreach team will be doing that. Listen, everybody, thank you so much for having me. I apologize. Our team is staying on. Some folks will be on. I do have to run to another meeting right now, but thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Oh, hi, Deputy, you're back.
I'm back.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Thank you so much for having me. And we will be in touch, okay? And we'll follow up on those items, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the team that's remaining on. I had to jump on and off. Technology is what it is. I think that we are at the point where we want to open up the mic for BOEDC and the presentations there from, are we going to hear from Marlene Cintron? Are we going to, okay. So Marlene, we thank you for being here today. Always BOEDC with the, thumb on the pulse of business in the Bronx. As the name implies, Bronx Overall Economic Development Center. Really, really plugged into everything that we need to know today. Chris, can you unmute Marlene? And we thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, Marlene, your audio is unmuted, so you should be able to speak. If you are trying to speak at the moment, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Alternatively, Marlene, I emailed you the phone number to just call in on a traditional phone line. So, Deputy, maybe we want to revisit if Marlene wants to speak.
Yeah, we're technology today is not cooperating, so we're just gonna skip around as we go through the agenda. I hope everyone. We want to be respectful of your time, and we want to get you the information. So it may not look as coordinated as it actually is, but we are definitely going to get you the information today. So it looks like we'll hold for Marlene, let her set up, and we'll move on to our next presentation. Overall overview of services for consumers and workers. We're having a presentation by Alberto Rodin, Deputy Director of Community Affairs and Department of Consumer Worker Protection, formerly the Department of Consumer Affairs. So let's welcome Mr. Rodin, and let's open up his mic for the presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us today to present briefly on some of the COVID-related updates our agency is working on. I'm going to touch quickly on what we're doing for consumers, and then secondly, our workers. So the first thing for consumers I want to touch is our price gouging rule that went into effect March 16th. Essentially, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection listed certain items as being in low in availability. So, for example, cleaning products such as disinfectant, wipes, masks, thermometers, some medicines, etc. Those items cannot be marked up more than 10% above what they were costing 60 days before the order went into effect. So the order went into effect March 16th. So since March 5th, we have received over 10,000 complaints and have issued over 7,000 violations. So our inspectors are out in the field actively reacting to these complaints. Our agency wants to protect consumers. We don't want businesses profiting off of vulnerable consumers during this pandemic. So if you are aware of a business that has potentially excessively priced their items, call 311 and say overcharge, and we will have an inspector go out. You can also reach out to me directly. I'll have my info in the chat box to share. That's for price gouging. Now, to protect our providers and the general public, we've transitioned to remote financial counseling and remote free tax prep. So for those consumers who want, general help with managing their finances during this time, understanding what the new provisions of the HEROES Act provides student loan holders, you can book an appointment with a free financial counselor, confidential counselor, nyc.gov/talkmoney. So during this period, our financial counselors understand what may be the best solution for your student loan debt in terms of managing that, understanding that you do have automatically 6 months forbearance. Those types of provisions are now available for student loan holders. Additionally, for debt collectors, we have created a template for seized debt collection attempts for the general public. So New Yorkers can fill that out, mail to that debt collector to stop collection attempts during this state of emergency in New York State. If debt collectors continue to contact you, you may file a complaint by calling 311 and filing a complaint that way, or reaching us at nyc.gov/consumer. So we're free. And then now with the free tax prep, families that make more than 64,000 or less, they qualify for free remote tax filing, including seniors. That's nyc.gov/tax prep. So we're making an effort to protect consumers in that way, and also making it easier to file your taxes. I mean, the new deadline is July 15th, so there has been some fair extension for those who needed it. For all of us really who need it during this time, it's there. And lastly, our workplace laws. Just because it's a pandemic, workers do not lose their rights. Workers in New York City have the right to paid sick leave, regardless of status, regardless of national origin, etc. Your employer cannot retaliate against you for wanting to use your sick time. You can use it for yourself, for a loved one, or someone who is like a family member. And that can be to treat yourself, or it could be just preventative care, like, hey, I have to isolate to make sure I don't have COVID, or I do have COVID. You can use that time without fear of retaliation. And we take retaliation very seriously. Retaliation for the agency is any action that would, deter you from wanting to exercise your right or inquire of that right. So paid sick leave, again, it's the biggest law we have for workers here in New York City. They have up to 40 hours of city paid sick leave. We encourage employers to definitely provide more, but you have to give at least 40 hours of sick leave. In addition to that, retail workers and fast food workers have the right to know their schedule ahead of time. For fast food workers, certain changes would trigger premium pay. So additional pay would be given to these workers for the inconvenience of a last-minute change. And lastly, are freelance workers. Freelance workers have the right to get paid on time. So any contract, $800 or more, has to be written. A copy has to be given to the worker, and once the job is completed, you have to pay them within the date agreed to, or 30 days after the job is completed. So if there's a complaint for that, definitely reach out to olps@dca.nyc.gov, and one of our members of our intake team will reach out pretty quickly, actually. So just to give you some brief numbers on that, we've recovered over $50,000 in just the past 6 weeks or so for freelance workers. So it's active, it's working. So we definitely would want your help in spreading the word. Any questions, feel free to ask.
So if you have any questions, everyone, just as we did last presenter, raise your hand virtually, so Chris that can monitor you. Before we go into into questions, Chris, do we have Marlene set up yet?
Let's see. Yeah, she says she's on now on her phone. So.
Okay, so let's just go into questions and then we'll have Marlene next.
So in terms of hands that are up, there are 3 that are up that may still be up from the first presenter. Let me just take a quick look. I don't know if they may all have questions now. So let's see. One down. Cedric, do you have a question now?
Yes. Good morning, and how are you? Good to see you, Ms. Rodin. Okay.
Good morning. How are you? It's been a while.
Okay, good. All right, good. I'm sure that quickly. It's been about 2 months since we've gone through the conditions with the pandemic, and at that time you said that there was a 10% markup related to services that a store may provide at a purchase by a customer. Is there any idea when that policy would change, when that 10% markup would be taken off and the customer would still be able to get his item, but at the effective price that was put on before that 10% on the markup?
Right. So 2 things. Prior to us issuing that rule, we had surveyed across the city what the average price would be of certain items, right? So we knew on average, say, mask cost X amount of money. So 10% above that would be fine during the timeline of 60 days of the rule being in effect. Our commissioner may likely extend that rule during the pandemic at this time. So we're going to revisit that as the pandemic continues, and hopefully whenever it comes to some normalcy, you can say, then we will revisit that.
Okay. And the 10% markup was because of the lost revenue stream that may have been coming into existing businesses out in the marketplace, I would assume.
The 10% was issued to protect consumers from being price gouged, from being taken advantage of.
Okay.
But we also are privy that some suppliers may be price gouging small businesses. So we also encourage, if a small business is experiencing that or feels they are, to also let us know so we can look into that as well.
Thank you.
All right. So in terms of hands raised, Chiara has a hand raised still. Do you have a question this time as well? All right. Hearing nothing there, I'm going to guess no. Let's take a quick look at the rest. Richard Velez, you have your hand raised? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you. I had 2 family members that saw their receipts and it stated COVID-19 surcharge. Is that legal?
Not that we're aware of. Definitely let them call our office and we can look into that. Or they can shoot me an email. Shoot me an email and with the information, and we'll have someone call them.
All right, thank you.
All right. In terms of raised hands, I believe that's everyone. So with that, I'll unmute phone lines for a second in hopes that we can get Marlene in a spot where we can hear. So Marlene, if you're there, go ahead and let's see if we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Good morning. I know the time is of the essence. Just want to share with you the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation is located at Bronx Borough Hall. We have space in the borough president's offices, and we are considered the economic development arm of the Bronx Borough president. We have done some amazing work in the last 10 years. And we're devastated over the fact that this pandemic has kind of pushed us back. I'm here to let you know that having worked with the federal government in a previous life, as well as the city and the state, I did understand that government takes a little longer to kind of reach the local community. And as a result, what BOEDC immediately decided to do was to set aside what funds we had, which is a little bit over $1 million, in order to provide loans to our small businesses immediately, to the tune of anywhere from $10,000 up to $100,000. So, different from city agencies and other economic development corporations, we are lenders. We do have funds. And what we did was made available to our small businesses access to our loan fund with extremely an easy application, below market rate interest, because our interest was not in making money off of these loans, but rather supporting our current businesses and putting our residents back to work. So as you can tell by the flyer, we are now lending funds up to $100,000, up to 5 years. And for the first 180 days, you pay us nothing. We're hoping that you use that time in order to ramp up your businesses, so then you're able to pay us back in a long term at a reasonable rate. This week, we completed the first round and actually handed out 4 loans to the tune of $320,000 total. I was gratified to see that the first 4 loans that were approved, the 4 of them were in 4 different parts of the Bronx and were in 4 different kinds of business ventures, and 3 of them were either MBEs or WMBEs. Very reflective of our community and our businesses and what they do in order to do business in the Bronx. So we're currently on the second round. We're going to be voting on another 4 applications next Tuesday. My only concern is that the money is going quickly. So we will be reaching out to see what other resources we can get in order to continue reviewing and funding the over 60 applications that are already in our queue. We are going to be talking to the state about their loan fund, which they're going to be making some announcements next week to see how we can work together. There are issues that we also have to deal with. BOEDC not only lends, but we also advocate with the city and the state on issues that adversely impact our businesses. One of them is the rent with the landlords, but the other one that is of import is the fact that for the last 10 years, we have encouraged and provided financing to our minority business owners not to pay rent, but rather to own their property. Now they find themselves in dire straits because they cannot open their businesses, and yet they are being asked to provide property tax at a time when they are receiving no income and revenue. So these are things that we're going to be addressing. We also found during this loan processing time that many of our small businesses would not apply for PPP, which is the federal government's loan program, because they were not ready. Their paperwork was not where it should have been, or they didn't have access to it. And certainly what we determined was that these were small businesses that were very much deserving of these funds, but could not justify what they were looking for or what they deserved because their paperwork was not ready. So we applied for and we received a small seed grant from TD Bank in order to begin to start working with those small businesses that we could not fund through this particular fund, so that they will be strong enough to be eligible not only for our stuff in the near future, but others that are providing small business loans as well. BOEDC also works with the New York State Department of Labor. They have 4 workers in our offices, and they're working remotely right now, but we are able to connect people, job seekers, with New York State DOL remotely. We also have been working with employers who are desperately looking for employees, and we've been doing that as well. You may not know that last fall we started chasing Krispy Kreme in Georgia, who we knew was going to be opening up on Castle Hill Avenue, their processing plant. And in the middle of this pandemic, Krispy Kreme opened up with 169 Bronx residents, as well as opened up a Krispy Kreme store on Fordham Road. So we've been supporting those businesses that are planning and have arrived in the middle of the pandemic to ensure that those jobs that are becoming available do come to Bronx residents. Know that Michael Nixon is on the line. He is my credit analyst. You will see on the bottom right-hand side of that flyer access, telephone numbers, and their email addresses so that you can reach out and make inquiries, so that you can receive our application, so you can ask questions. Rafael Roger is also on our call, and he is the SBA 504 lender, where we are lending, and this is unlimited money, anywhere from $200,000 to $5.5 million for the acquisition of commercial property, to purchase more machinery, and or do build out in your current properties. So we are here for you. We are not closed for business. We are open for business. We have been here, and we want to make sure that the successes that we have made in the last 10 years, which was to reduce the unemployment rate from 14.2% down to a little, I guess about 5.2% in February before the world blew up, back to its norm as quickly as possible. We welcome the opportunity to work with the new SBS team. We were chagrined over the fact that the Bronx only received 1% of the funds that were made available through SBS early on, but I am sure that with their concern mirroring ours, we expect to work much more closely with SBS so that we can correct this wrong in light of the fact that we are one of 5 boroughs and should have received at least 20% of the funds rather than 1%, and looking to working with the new team over at SBS. I don't know if you have any questions, but I am more than available, as is the rest of my team.
All right, thank you, Marlene.
Thank you, Marlene. As I said before, BOEDC is a strong partner to the Borough President's Office and to the Bronx as a whole. As I'm speaking, anyone who has questions for Marlene, please virtually raise your hand. And Chris, who can see you raising your hand, will take over from there.
All right. Still, I don't see any new hands raised. There's a couple that were raised previously, but I'll just check real quick. BX04, Community Board 4. I don't know if you had a question.
Yes, this is Paul Phillips from Community Board 4. Thank you for that presentation. I just had a couple of questions. How many applications do you have in the queue currently total that you guys are reviewing? I'm just curious. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, as of a couple of days ago, there were 60 in the queue, but know that some of these individuals are not eligible, others are, and so that's my concern is that there is a huge need.
Gotcha, okay. And you said there's gonna be a second round starting next week, is that what you said?
We have reviewed another 10 applications, ballpark figure, of which 4 were identified as being eligible for funding. Those 4 will be going before the board on Tuesday.
Okay.
For review and or approval.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the work you guys are doing. I know there's a lot going on, and you guys are getting inundated with a lot of information and requests. So just want to say thank you on behalf of the businesses and their owners for the stuff that you guys
It's our job, and it's our pleasure, and that is our mission and vision.
All right. The other hands that were raised were raised previously. Not sure if they have questions specifically for Marlene or SBS, but she
So
already.
how about we do this, Chris? Let's give everybody a chance to check their devices. If your hand is up, we'll give you a chance to take, and you do not have a question, let's have you take your hands down right now.
Let me just add here that anyone who wishes to can email me at any time at mcintron@boedc.org. O-R-G.
Thank you, Marlene, for that. And are there any hands still up, Chris?
So yeah, there are.
Okay, let's go with that. Let's give everybody, all those folks a chance.
Richard Velez, did you have a question at this time?
No.
All right, and I believe John Dudley. That's a new hand raised. John, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, Marlene. How you doing? Just a quick question. The $1 million that we were talking about that we started, was that discretionary money from the, was that borough president money?
No, actually these were funds that I received from New York State. It was a discretion allocation from a New York State senator in order to provide small business loans throughout the Bronx. Up until that period of time, I only had loan money for businesses that were located south of 161, empowerment zone money. And so this particular senator was located north of 161, but the discretion was that we could use it in any part of the Bronx, and it was just kismet that A, we had it, and B, we needed it, and we're using it.
Okay, that sounds okay. So that was state discretionary money from a senator you had mentioned, right? Yeah. Any of the money. I mean, we had commissioner from SBS, the new commissioner that was on earlier. You know, he talked about the larger federal dollars that had gone, you know, to the state, and how Business Solutions sort of helps not so much administer but connect a lot of businesses that are in need of funding. There were a pool of 40 lenders that he talked about. He had mentioned $60 million, but at the end of the day, I heard $37.8 billion. Is there any sense from your standpoint as to how much of that money has come in at all to the Bronx? I'm just curious, in terms of the federal.
What I'm going to say is that millions have come in, but to the larger businesses. I helped some of them know that there was a lot of issues. Number one, the big banks like Chase and Citi and Bank of America and Capital One were very concerned because historically in the 2008 to 2010 financial crises, the federal government told the banks, lend the money, we got you, and they got burned, okay? And basically, this is a bigger financial, pull, and the federal government, because they were rushing to do all of this, really were not giving the kind of financial assurance that banks wanted in order to lend to smaller businesses. As a result, you know what happened. They gave the PPP money, sometimes illegally, to companies that were their clients that they knew the money would come back to Chase or to whatever the bank may be. So that was a big deal. And as a result, the smaller businesses, which are not that necessarily that smaller here in the Bronx, that were more than eligible, were being ignored or told to wait. Their applications were in the queue, but the banks were not processing them. And so those businesses that I knew, what I did was that I referred them to smaller banks that were in the Bronx that were hungry to do the business. And as a result, these smaller, I'm going to call them mid-range businesses, minority-owned, were referred to minority-owned banks here in the Bronx. Their applications were processed in 3 to 4 days, and the deal was that they would move their banking relationships to these smaller minority-owned banks in the Bronx. I had no issues with this. I think it worked for everybody, and it also highlighted to these minority-owned businesses the fact that they were of no value to these bigger banks where they were. So there is still some money left, but certainly they can apply, but I think that the ones that are still left really do not have the ability to qualify because of the lack of TA in their businesses.
Because of the lack of what, Marlene, you said?
Technical assistance.
Oh, technical assistance, you mean?
They need to start looking stronger on paper. They are strong businesses.
Right. Because you mentioned earlier that some businesses couldn't justify what they were looking for. I was just, yeah, okay. I got you. Thanks, Marlene.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We do have one more hand that's raised currently, Al D'Angelo. I'll unmute that line. Go ahead.
No, that question was for the commissioner. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Okay. That's okay. Deputy.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for those questions. And thank you, Marlene, BOEDC, for your vigilance around this topic. This is certainly something that communities and community boards are really focused on as we look to exit COVID lockdown, shutdown, safe at home, pause, whatever you're calling it. We're definitely ready to go spend some money. Maybe I should just speak for myself in that regard. Our next presentation, and we thank them so much for their patience, resources, and services. Our presentation from John Castelli, Deputy Commissioner and Legislative Affairs, and Deputy Commissioner for Communication and Public Affairs, Marissa Sanigo, and they're from the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings. Thank you so much again for your patience and our technical issues and so forth, but we are here. And Chris, can you just unmute them so that they might start up with their presentation? That's John and Marissa.
Yeah, okay, so they're both unmuted. John or Marissa, if you want to share the presentation from your screen, that would be best, but if you need me to share it, I'm happy to do so. So whatever works.
John's actually still on mute. John's still on mute. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm on the call. This is Rachel Amar, Special Assistant to the Commissioner at Oath. So I'm joining.
I was going to do that. I was talking to myself on mute. Sorry.
It's okay.
I tend to talk to myself on mute a lot. I do hear some background static.
Yeah, I think whoever's speaking primarily in the presentation, we'll leave that line unmuted and then we can mute the others. That seems to be where the feedback is coming from.
Is it coming from? Still coming?
Chris, you have that under control?
Yeah, it looks like only Marissa, I'm going to mute your line for a second. John, try speaking again. Let's see if that helps.
Does this help now? Yeah.
That's much better.
Okay. I was going to mention, Rachel, I was going to mention you. I was actually at the time. Thank you, Deputy Borough President. And on behalf, and thank Borough President Ruben Diaz and the fantastic staff that you have at the Bronx Borough President's office. Dirk, we've worked with Dirk. Marisol does a fantastic job, and Chris, really great job you're doing here today. We've been on a few of these, and this is really run exceptionally well compared to what we've been on regarding other ones. So kudos to you, Chris. Kudos to you.
Thanks.
Again, my colleagues and I, Deputy Commissioner Sinigo and Special Assistant to the Commissioner Amar, we do a lot of outreach, but we're here today to focus on a particular area that we're working on during COVID-19. But we're always hoping that we can at some point in the future have a more intense and more specific presentation regarding what we do, because we do a lot, and it's important that we get that message out there. And we spent a lot of time over the last several years doing outreach throughout the city, including in the Bronx, working with elected officials, including Councilmember Fernando Cabrera, Councilmember Mark Jonai, Councilmember Salamanca Jr. We've worked also with Councilmember Gibson, and we worked with Councilmember Councilmember Andy King. So we've been out here for some time. In fact, the first neighborhood pop-up courts that we did in the city, we started in the Bronx. But what we're here today to focus on is and if you could, Chris, we have that document. If you could share that. We have COVID-19, what we've been doing during COVID-19, and it's very important for the residents and small businesses of the Bronx to know what this is about, what we have been doing. Oath has been, and I'm going to pass it on to Marissa and Rachel in a second, but Oath has been up and running. And unlike other cities like Chicago, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Baltimore, where they've been shut down entirely. But Oath we've been up and running, and we're conducting our hearings through teleconferencing. So they're not in-person hearings right now, but we are providing the opportunity for residents and small businesses to challenge those hearings. And Marissa and Rachel can get into exactly what's going on with this. Marissa, Rachel?
Thank you so much for having us. I'm Deputy Commissioner Snigo from Oath. I'm in charge of public affairs. We have gone 100% remote at Oath. A lot of businesses will receive summonses from enforcement agencies, and while the enforcement agencies have decreased their issuance, they are still issuing summonses, as you heard from DCA. Those price gouging summonses would come to Oath. We are doing everything telephonically or online. So you can do a telephonic hearing by calling, by emailing remote.bronx@oath.nyc.gov, and you will get a time when to click on the telephonic hearing. And if the issuing agency wants to be present, they will also be present by phone. And you'll have the opportunity to submit any evidence that you want via email. You will then get your written decision in the mail, as is the standard practice, within 10 days after the hearing date. We also still have the appeals unit up and running. So if you feel like this hearing officer made a incorrect decision in your case, you have the opportunity to appeal, and we've extended those deadlines from 30 days to 60 days. And we've also loosened up some requirements in terms of financial hardship waivers. Typically, you have to pay the violation before you can appeal, but we are, and we require documentation normally if you are seeking a waiver because of financial hardship, but we have loosened those restrictions. So we're basically granting those waivers. Another thing that we have been doing since February 23rd is we have been automatically rescheduling cases so that they do not fall into default. So what is important for you guys to know is obviously that is not going to be a never-ending thing. We have to, if a business or someone has issued a summons, the summons is going to have a hearing at some point. It's looking like around the middle of June now is when we're going to start rolling back some of those policies in regards to not defaulting people. One, because we've just gotten such great feedback on the telephonic hearings, and everyone just seems so impressed with it. It's easy, it's convenient. And, you know, now more than ever, when people are kind of sitting at home, not that they don't have anything to do, but it is a good time for them to kind of take care of these kinds of things. And, you know, lots of people just actually do want to take care of their summons. It's something that's hanging over them. They don't want to forget. For instance, when we do roll back the rescheduling requirements, or the auto rescheduling rather, you know, they don't want to be stuck in a situation where they have forgotten about their summons. So we do encourage people to start actually using these telephonic hearings as a way to contest their summons, and do it sooner rather than later so that you don't get caught in a default with a higher penalty. Another thing that you should know is Department of Sanitation summonses can be done online. We have an online hearing form. We've had this in place since 2012, so many people probably already know how to use it. But you basically go online, you submit your written defense, and you can upload any evidence that you may have. It's then given to a hearing officer. They will look at the summons and what is charged, and then look at your defense. And they will again issue the decision, send it in the mail within 10 days. And for small businesses, we have set up an email to go to our help center. We have help centers at every location. Of course, they're closed now, but we're doing remote help sessions. So if you're a small business, our help center coordinators can help you understand some of the SBS rules, liaise with you to put you in touch with the right unit. As you heard from the SBS commissioner earlier, they have a lot of programs going on and a lot of different units working on a lot of different assistance for different types of people. And we've got touch points at all of those units. So if you do have a summons, make sure to email us at smallbizhelp@oath.nyc.gov. That'll make sure that we know that you're a small business, and we can ask you more pointed questions about other things that you may not know are available to you as a small business, other resources and things like that. Any property owner can always also use the help center as well. Our procedural justice coordinators are there to help, and you'll get a reminder before your hearing, your telephonic hearing, basically telling you this is your last opportunity to have a help session, and gives you the information on how to contact that help center for assistance. So if you guys have any other questions, I am available to answer.
I also want to add to, I just want to mention that one thing that's going on right now for so many people in small businesses has to do with, I mean, the pressures, the challenges that people have to face right now, meeting bills. And then if there are situations where people have summonses they have to deal with, and they have a COVID-19 related issue, there are again, tremendous pressures. What we're doing here again, and to reiterate what Marissa had mentioned, what we're doing here is we're doing everything possible to ensure that people get an accommodation where if they, for some reason, they forget that they had the hearing and they did, because they're dealing with other significant issues, they can, we would automatically, again, we're automatically rescheduling those hearings. If people need time to prepare for their defense for a summons and they need more time, we're providing the opportunity for them to, we'll again reschedule these hearings to a much later date. Hopefully, COVID-19 will come to an end sooner than later, and they can deal with these summons-related issues at a later point once they've managed to deal with the challenges they're facing right now. And for those people that simply, for one reason or another, they had a serious experience related to COVID-19, and they, for some reason, did not appear. Again, as Marissa mentioned, we're not penalizing those people. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that people and small businesses have options during this very challenging time. Rachel, I don't know if you want to add something?
Sure. I just want to be really brief. Some of you know me from the work that I've done in the Bronx, and I wanted to make sure that you knew we also had a phone number that small businesses can contact if they have further questions that they can't maybe send in one email because it's a discussion rather than an email, and they can call us at 212-436-0845, and someone from our help center will give them a call back. Of course, anyone is also welcome to reach out. Any one of my coworkers and also myself will enter our information into the chat. But I also wanted to add one thing that we're doing differently that we haven't done in the past is if somebody actually wants to address their summons the same day and it's not their scheduled hearing date, they can reach out to us in the morning and we will do our best to get them a hearing by the afternoon. So we understand how difficult this time is and we're here to help. Thank you.
So we want to thank you again, along with the rest of our presenters. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your presentation. At this time, if there are any questions, can everyone virtually raise your hand? To which, as is the norm, Chris will see your hand and he will acknowledge you. You will unmute yourself and speak. Now go.
All right, so it looks like Al D'Angelo, do you have a question at this time? Your hand is raised.
No, I said before, my question was for the commissioner.
Mr. D'Angelo, do you know how to take your hand down?
Probably not. That's probably why you keep asking the question.
So it looks like you are on the web, so you will look in the Chris, you explain.
Yeah, so just again, in the list of participants that you can see on the bottom, in the bottom right corner, there's a tiny button. I do wish it was a little bit easier to see, but there's a tiny button there with a black outline of a hand and a white background. So if you just click that, again, that'll take it down. And then in terms of other questions, John Dudley, your hand is up. Did you have a question now, or is that up from the previous round?
I have a quick question. Let me do, how long, when the hearings are automatically rescheduled, how how long are they, in other words, how long are they postponed into the future, the hearings?
So some of them are now on their second reschedules, and it also depends on the type of case. So for instance, a DOB case, because they have such high issuance, may be pushed out longer because we have to account for these rolling reschedules, right? So there's summonses. So we can't put all the things on one day because we're constantly getting summonses with future hearing dates on them. So it really depends, but it's about 2 months, I would say, on average. But some of the buildings ones are going into 2021 already, and I do want to make sure that you guys know that any aggravated, or like real serious public safety things, although they're getting rescheduled, they are not getting rescheduled far out that way.
So you're at the outset about 2 months?
Yeah, I would say about 2 months. Because like I said, we've been doing this since February 26th. And, John was right. Like we have been very, accommodating, but we also do have to roll back. This could go on for, an inevitable amount of time. So we will be rolling back those accommodations in June. So you guys should be spreading the message that we've been accommodating for 4 months, but we don't want people to be caught by surprise, which is why we're going out and making sure that we attend meetings like this, because we do want people to know that, they're not going to get rescheduled forever.
Okay. Thank you.
We also have an online summons finder on our website at oath.nyc or nyc.gov/oath. Sorry, I was giving you my email address. And on the homepage, there is a link to an online summons finder. You can put in either your name, your address, or the summons number. The summons number, I think, is the easiest. And it'll show you the new hearing date. So if for some reason you feel like you might have a summons that got rescheduled, but you don't know when it is. And you can also, of course, contact the help center or me.
And just want to also mention that we have a new commissioner. Joni Kletter is our new commissioner and chief administrative law judge. And she actually came in just before the COVID-19 crisis hit. And she's done a really great job at making sure that we stayed open for residents, small businesses who wanted to have their hearings. And we're having a large number of hearings right now, every day, because people that have gotten summonses do want to challenge their summonses. They want that opportunity. Those that can, and again, we take that with we're very sensitive to the fact that there are plenty of people out there that cannot, for a COVID-19 related reason, not be able to challenge their summonses, even though they want to. So we point that out because Mayor de Blasio set the goal for us to make sure that we get greater access to justice and keep that greater access to justice for everyone, for residents and small business owners in the Bronx and in the other 5 boroughs. So that's something that we never want to lose sight of here, is that we want to make sure that there is always greater access to justice, and we try to find ways to do it even during critical times like this, to ensure that people, residents and small business owners, don't have to deal with the additional stresses where they're dealing with these unprecedented challenges. Thank you.
And just so you guys know, we've already done more than 6,000 hearings telephonically. So yeah, we do about 200 a day. So we're open for business.
And there's one other thing about this, because we are open, what other cities are going to likely to experience that have closed down, cities that I've mentioned, Chicago, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Baltimore. What's going to happen at some point when they reopen? There's going to be there'll probably be a tremendous backlog, which would create a great inconvenience for the residents and small business owners of those cities, because they're going to have to come back to a pile of stuff. And whereas we're going forward, and as someone mentioned, there was an elected official who mentioned that it's important. It's the fact that these hearings that we're doing this, that the government is working, going about its business, that people have the opportunity to challenge their summonses, is reassuring to people that things are going on. it's good for all. That the fact is that things are going on for everyone. That not everything has gone has shut down in that sense. That things and that consistency and that ensure it kind of ensures that, hey, we're here, we're doing what we need to do, and we're going to, when this thing comes to an end, and it will end, hopefully very soon, we will not have that type of situation where there would be major disruptions because we're open. And then we could laugh at those other cities, right? So anyway, so thank you very much, everybody. Thank you again, Deputy Borough President. Thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it. And please express our thanks to the Borough President and the great job that you guys
Absolutely.
continue. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience with everything that's going on and hanging in with us. I think we are near the end, if not at the end of the questions. Is that?
Yeah, that is correct. I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Okay, on our agenda for next, we have an update from our own Dr. Nancy, really talking about, she's our Health and Human Services Director, and she has been very informative, and she's helped us in various meetings and keeping sort of abreast of the most current and updated announcements and things going on, all things COVID. I've proclaimed her COVID czarist. And I know we had a little bit of trouble with her connectivity. She sent the presentation. So if Chris, you could prepare that, and we'll just check in and see if she's online. So Nancy, are you on?
I don't know that she is. I can put the presentation up real quick right now.
Well, let's just prepare it so that if she gets on, and if not, within a minute or so, we'll just move on to the announcements portion, and we'll open up the floor to everyone else, and then try to circle back to this presentation. Okay. So again, I'm checking in for Nancy. Are you in? Are you on the call? Are you ready to present?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't think, I made sure she had the phone number, so perhaps she can, like Marlene, join us that way in a few minutes. If not, we'll take it from there. But yeah, and other announcements, that kind of thing. Go ahead.
Right. So what we usually do at the end of our meetings is we allow for an opportunity for all board members and representatives, and also audience members, usually city agencies, to make an announcement about any upcoming events or comments, questions, or concerns in terms of what we're doing. So as I'm speaking, and if you intend to make a statement, could you virtually raise your hand so that you can be acknowledged by Chris? If you are a community board member, if you are a chair, if you are an agency, now's the time to be heard. Virtually raise your hand. You're going to the participant list. You are going to see a hand there, and you will raise it if you are interested in speaking now. I will stop speaking, and Chris, you will acknowledge any hands that are raised.
All right. I will start with James Rouse, our Director of Planning and Development. James, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Deputy. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, everyone. Good to see the faces that I can see. I hope everyone has been safe, and thank you to anyone who's still on from the agencies. Thank you for your presentations. I just, since Nancy's not here, I wanted to give some other updates our office is participating in regards to COVID. I've been speaking with Nancy and touching base with her and Matt Scheffler on a regular basis in terms of various meetings that we have. The first thing I want to bring up, I think many of you have seen already, but for those who don't, The office has released a housing report for Bronx CDCs and CBOs, community development corporations, community business organizations, that we had hosted the forum on April 15th and released the report a couple of weeks ago, and it's on our website. Alex had posted the link in the chat. He can post it again if necessary, if you can't find it amongst the chat. But Alex is on. Alex, if you want to chime in with just a couple of points about what the report contains. Quickly.
Yeah, sure. This was just a kind of a culmination of outreach that James and I had done from the VP's office over the course of maybe about a month. And it wound up culminating in this sort of forum that James touched on, where we had over 60 participants from the different housing agencies and not-for-profits, basically just to get a sense of what they were feeling, what life was like for them on the ground, what their tenants and constituents were going through, and what problems that may be arising for them in this sort of unprecedented time. I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing unprecedented, but for a lot of these groups, that is the reality. And so we basically just wanted to provide, number one, a snapshot of of what all these different organizations were dealing with, and number two, hopefully pave the way for a process to ease these concerns for everyone, alleviate these concerns, and hopefully moving forward we can start the process to rebuilding, and maybe this will result in another forum. We don't know just yet, but we are looking forward to the next step.
Thanks, Alex. So again, in the chat, there is a link to the report. If you have not read it yet and want to check it out, please do. Alex can post it again. The other two items, just quickly, is that we've been part of the Bronx Community Relief effort, the goal of the $10 million fund to raise to support organizations, businesses, and residents as part of the reopening and addressing COVID-related issues and crises. So we've been speaking with folks at thebronx.org, Here to Here, and affiliated not-for-profit organizations such as Nos Quedamos and WEDCO, who have participated in that. So we're actively in conversation with that. And also, I just want to offer for anyone who wants to reach out to me privately, I'm representing the borough president in the New York City Regional Control Room. So when we have conversations with the state about reopening, and so if you're going to email me, make sure it's more about big picture items. If there's something like small and specific, just with a vendor or a retail store, we're not necessarily talking about those issues at the moment. We're just talking about the bigger picture opportunities for reopening. So if there's something that you've noticed or just a broader issue that you wish to bring up, please feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best to have it addressed in these conversations. That's it from my end.
All right. Well, thank you, James and Alex. I would add one small note to the report. If anybody's seeing the meeting online and not somebody who's participating in it, you can go to the reports page on the Bronx Borough President's website, and you'll be able to find it there as well.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure. Yeah, and looking down the list, I'll try to go alphabetical. So Erica Downing has her hand raised. Erica, I'm unmuting your line. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, good afternoon. Erica Downing from the Department of Health. Just a few updates regarding COVID. As you know, we are working actively with our sister agencies and ensuring we can assist the community in general. We have our messaging remains the same in reference to social distancing. We're asking all New Yorkers to practice social distancing. We also are asking individuals if they have to go out for essential services to wear face coverings. This doesn't necessarily mean it's a mask. It could be a bandana, a scarf, and to practice good hand hygiene. The mayor recently announced COVID-19 testing sites, new ones that are coming up. We've been getting a lot of questions on how to access this information. You can actually call 311 and they'll give you your nearest testing site, or you can go to nyc.gov/COVID test, and it can provide you the nearest testing site to your area. They are by appointments. So we definitely, 311 and the website as well provides you the number for appointments. So if you know any constituents that are interested in getting tested, they can do that as well. And I do just want to say that I have been activated for an emergency response role. So some of my emails, I will be getting back to everyone that emails me. It's just going to take a little bit longer. So I do ask for patience. In general, if you're hearing any individuals that are feeling depression, anxiety, or any form of stress because of the pandemic, that's completely normal. We also have services that we offer as well through our NYC Well line, as well as the state also has a number. I did share it before, but if anybody needs it, I can share it again. Thank you, and that's all for House.
All right, thank you. Let's see, there is another hand raised. Jackie Carter, the MTA. Jackie, you're unmuted, so go ahead.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. If you hear any noise in the background, I can't do anything about that. Local Law 11 is working on my building, so I apologize for the noise. I just want to make sure that everyone had received the email I sent yesterday in regards to the MTA first pilot on the UV proven to kill the COVID-19. This was the next step that I think you've heard that we were looking for, was another way in which we'd be able to actually kill the COVID-19 in our subways and our buses. So the email I sent yesterday, which also will include photos if you want to see exactly what the technology looks like, and a video. And basically what it is that it is a pilot, and we have approximately 150 of these mobile devices that are from a Denver-based startup called Puro Lighting. And based on this company, they've used this in hospitals, they've used this in urgent care clinics, in universities, and I'm happy to say that next week we're going to start using it on our subways, our buses, and our rolling stock. So this is just the next level in which our interim president, Feinberg, had indicated a few weeks ago that this was just another step that we're trying to explore new options on being able to clean and disinfect. According to the company, this is supposed to kill COVID-19. So I want everyone to cross their fingers, their toes, and let's hopefully see that this does happen. I did send that email out to everyone, so please click on it so you'll be able to see the photos and the videos. Please remember that we still are continuing of closing the subways from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. to continue the cleaning. And that's the only updates that I have right now.
All right, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Let's see. Next on the list of raised hands is Valerie from New York City Parks Department. Go ahead.
Good afternoon to all. The commissioner wanted me to share with the board today about a press release that was released yesterday by Commissioner Silver. And in his announcement, it was that more than ever, city parks and green spaces have proven to be critical infrastructure, places of refuge, and park workers have been on the front line keeping these sanctuaries and sanity open here in New York. In honor of tremendous work that put in every day by park workers, the Empire State Building is to be lit tonight in honor of all the park workers here in the city and across the world. So today starts the day going green in honor of parks. So starting at sunset tonight at 8:12, the Empire State Building will be lit in green, and also including at our location, Renaqua also will be lit in green. The parachute jump in Coney Island, the Washington Square Park Arch, the Arsenal in Central Park, and the parks elements will be lit through the end of June. So we're all excited about today, honoring our parkies, because we're still out there during this pandemic, keep making sure everything, business is normal. So I'm just wishing everybody to stay safe, and that's basically all I have.
All right, thank you. Deputy Nancy is with us on the phone. Would you like to continue the other announcements or switch over to Nancy now?
I had to unmute myself there. Let's just go ahead and go finish up the announcements and then circle back with Nancy. Thank you, Nancy, for logging back on and being with us. Let's do the announcements and then let you can be the closer, Nancy.
All right, so there's the username on the screen, Y Duarte. Unmuting that line now.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Jo Carina from New York City Emergency Management. I just want to share a couple of things with you guys. So before we promoted the Share Your Space survey, and I just want to give you a heads up that Share Your Space is very critical to identify space within all 5 boroughs and in your communities that we can use not only during emergencies, but also for training for our CERT program. Just to give you a heads up, the Share Your Space has been very vital in order for us to identify locations within the 5 boroughs that can be used for different operations, including COVID-19. That survey was expanded to actually hotels. So now we've been asking hotels that have the space and are interested to do business with the city for COVID-19 related operations to register the location with us. And we have quite a significant number in different boroughs, including the Bronx. I just want to remind community boards that due to COVID-19 operation, emergency management is involved in many different operations. So we're not doing notification as often as we used to. And with that said, that doesn't mean that if you hear anything in your community or if you hear anything and you're not sure who's dealing with, you can always reach out to us at the Intergov email, and we will definitely try to find information for you if we're involved. And if not, then we'll connect you to the right agency. And last but not least, the summer is coming up, and we are adopting the heat plan for the summer, which means that there will be some adaptation to the cooling center program. So I'll share more information as they become available, but just giving you a heads up that that's also changing a little bit due to the COVID-19. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. And let's see, I believe there was one other hand raised from somebody on the phone. Number that starts, it's a 646 area code. I'm unmuting that line. You have your hand raised. If you could identify yourself and go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning, and thoughts and prayers for everyone to stay safe during this pandemic. This is Jermaine Williams from HRA Intergovernment Affairs. Real quick, Nicole was on the line, Nicole Jordan from Department of Home and Services, and she had to step off. So she said if there was any concerns anybody had, can they please email it to her? So real quick, so first I want to make an announcement is that, our commissioner pretty much has been having conference calls every Tuesday where he gives updates on what's going on within the agency, which pretty much gives us our marching orders as far as any concerns that come up. He pretty much really is in favor of these calls because it helps us get information about concerns that are going out there that as an agency we may miss because, as you know, it's not a one-size-fits-all type situation right now. So when people bring up these concerns, it helps us go back and try to see what we can do to rectify whatever the concern is, at least give an idea that these are the type of concerns that are actually going on. One of the things I definitely want to mention that we was able to get a waiver that allows individuals to actually apply on HRA, Access HRA to apply for cash assistance. That's pretty much one of the focus targets for our agency right now is trying to gear people towards going to Access HRA to apply for services. Because we're pretty much, we closed majority of us. I want to say there's about one center in every borough that's pretty much open. And the reason for this is that if people happen to not have gotten an EBT card, this is a location they can actually go to get a temporary one in the meantime until the EBT card does come in the mail. But in light of, if it doesn't come and they do need one, they can always go to online to www.connectebt.com. That's CONNECTEBT.com. Or they can call 1-888-328-6399, and that's 888-328-6399. Real quick, so we also been given information on the pandemic EBT card, and this is an EBT card that the state is issuing for families who had children who was eligible for free to reduce lunches. There's no need to fill out an application for this. They don't go on site trying to find out how to apply. This is done automatically. The other thing that was quickly announced about it was that undocumented, it does not count towards a public charge. So families, the state is supposed to be reaching out to DOE to get the information for individual families so they can send them the card. Individuals that already have the EBT card, the benefits of this be added to the card, and for undocumented who may not have a card, they will be able to get the card issued to them. We also still consent, I and as well as still hear that we still get the concerns that people are worried about phone interviews or calling to verify information for recertifications, or the same thing for new applications. We're pretty much trying to indicate, and it's on our website, please do not or disregard the notifications that are saying you have to call or your benefits are going to be affected. The one thing we want to make sure we're clear on is that as long as if a person's applying or recertifying and they can pretty much prove identity, social security number, residency, gross income, disability, and or alien eligibility, that there's no need to call us. If we do see that this is something we need, we'll call you. It makes it a lot easier because we don't want people, people are still calling and saying, oh, I can't get through, nobody's picking up. Again, we're trying to reduce the number of resources to be doing, to be sitting by waiting for phone calls versus us calling because we need to information to approve a case. We did put out information on our enhanced SNAP benefits, and the easiest way for me to explain it is one person was getting $100 as a household allocation. The enhanced SNAP benefits increased that individual's household to the maximum number, so they got an additional $94, bringing their household allocations to $194. And there's no need to to put in a request for this. We're doing it automatically. It does take time, so please bear with us. The one thing I do want to add is there are concerns with individuals saying they put in the application between March and April and they have not heard anything. Please send me an email. My email address is williamsje@hra.nyc.gov. That's williamsje@dss.nyc.gov. And just one last thing for the district managers, because it's for some reason, I do understand if it happens, but is it possible for when you guys send out a notification for your Zoom meetings or for district service cabinet that you put it as a calendar invite? Because for some reason it doesn't save, and then when I look at my calendar, it doesn't pop up, and I can't, of course, not sure how to do it from when you have it sent the way it's been coming. So just if you can, thank you so much. If not, don't worry about it. Nicole always looks out for me and she sends it to me. Teamwork. And everybody stay safe and have a great holiday weekend.
Thank you for that. Chris, do we have any more folks with their hands raised?
We do actually. Mike Sharp, Department of Finance, just raised his hand and sent a message. If he's still there, Mike, you're unmuted.
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you so much, Chris. Once again, hoping everyone is in good health and staying safe. Just want to encourage everyone to go to the Department of Finance website. There's a lot of questions regarding property taxes, business taxes, rent freeze, a number of things, parking violations. They are constantly updating the website. There's a banner on the landing page that says updates regarding COVID-19. So there's a whole wealth of information there that can get you up to speed on what's happening now. And I just want to make that recommendation. It's an excellent resource. I'd be happy to come back and do a deeper dive, but please, everyone go to the website and search for the questions that you're interested in. You can also, from our community boards and other community partners, you can send me an email at sharpm@finance.nyc.gov, and we'll be happy to give you whatever assistance we can. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And Deputy, there are, let's see. There's one other phone user that I think had raised their hand during this. It's a 917 area code. Unmuting that line if that is somebody who had an update to provide at this point. All right. And other than that, okay, that hand went down. So other than that, Community Board 5, Ken, did you have an update?
Actually, I wanted to ask Jermaine a question. Are you still on the line, Jermaine?
Hello? Yes, I'm on still.
Yep, there he is.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, first of all, that these weekly calls are tremendously important, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
That's one thing. If I recall correctly, there will be requests for recertification notices going out in June for July recertification.
Wait, say that one more time. Sorry, I couldn't hear you that good.
If I recall correctly from previous calls or this week's call, there should be notices for recertifications going out in June for July recertifications. Is that correct? And if so, don't.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the last part? And if so, what?
Don't do that. Can we just have a blanket?
Oh, no. Right. So that's this. Right. So you're correct. There was the commissioner did mention that there was notice that there was notifications that was supposed to be going out for June, but at the same time, remember once we get a waiver to exempt or to waive the fact that we're going to do recertifications for a certain period of time, we have to reach out to do an additional request for a waiver to do, which he mentioned they're in the process of doing now for between June and July. So I guess I must say, and this is just me personally, that I wish it was a perfect system and they would just waive something the first time until further notice. But I guess, the powers that be, this is just a protocol we have to do to be on top of it. And that's why it does make it a little complicated, because we can't stop notices from going out. So again, that's why it's good to refer people to our website, because it pretty much, anytime the commissioner gives us an update of anything we receive as far as new changes, we automatically put it upload it and put it on our webpage, so it could give people a little comfort knowing that they don't have to worry about a recertification coming up the next calendar month. But we do know things slip through and people get busy. So again, we just know that we're in a process now working on a waiver to waive the recertification for June coming up. For July coming up rather. But most likely the notices probably already go out, because we always try to send out a notice a month before so that people don't miss a recertification. But it's me personally, I want to say it's a good chance that they're going to waive it because of the pandemic we're still in right now. So, but it's just a matter of time of waiting for them to actually say, yes, it's waived, and then we'll make a notification of that. But thank you for the question.
I just want to ask a follow-up.
Yeah.
If the waiver is not granted, or if it's not granted in time, do you know, is the notice saying for people to report to their job center? How are they supposed to respond for recertifications?
Well,
And is the
so which is
reopening of the job centers tied to the recertifications?
all right, but so that's a two-part thing. So remember, the job center has to do with cash assistance, and SNAP is the SNAP office. So if it's a PA, I mean, that's a little bit different, and I'm not 100% sure on that, so I would have to get back to you. But as far as the waivers we're focusing on to allow individuals to be able to continue getting food and not have a change in receiving benefits is mainly the SNAP one. And that's pretty much, I want to believe, the waiver that he's referring to as far as notices going out for July recertifications. And again, because we're in this pandemic, I want to believe that we're not going to be, the powers that be are not going to be that incompetent to say, okay, now have people go to the census because they're going to lose their benefits. And that's just being, worst case scenario. But again,
You're more hopeful than I am, man.
Hello? Say it again?
There's always disaster. You're more hopeful than I am.
Yeah, I know. And again, but, New Yorkers, we come together, we try our best. We are a very versatile city, complex, and we're able to, do things other cities can't. So, I'm gonna have my fingers crossed and prayers there that it doesn't happen. And continue to see the concerns going on with our city, and they'll just work with us.
Did you say that the waiver request is only for SNAP and not for TANF also?
No, I'm saying I don't remember him mentioning the cash assistance one in the conversation. The one he mentioned, I believe, was only for SNAP because we know we have to send out those notifications a month in advance. So June is like right around the corner. So we'll start sending some of those out depending on when a person's recertification date comes up. So it's just, and remember, that's automatically done. And I want to believe they don't want to change the system because when we finally, see some light from this pandemic, that's going to be business as usual. So to go in and change a whole system would probably take a long time. So it's just easier just to let people know, oh, we got a waiver, put on our website, please disregard. And then that's the other thing too, when people, and I don't want to take too long with it, but when we have individuals, when customers are signing up through Access HRA, they get notifications instantly on their phones letting them know updated information, which is a great tool we have, especially in this time. So that's another reason why we're really pushing for individuals to go to Access HRA to sign up, or even if they never did, to actually sign up now, and then they can link their case information to their to the app, the portal, and then that way they get updated information as they going forward.
If you can, if we could talk about this on the call Tuesday, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely not a problem. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
All right, so I think that's everybody who had their hand raised for this portion, Deputy. Nancy's still with us on the phone, so I think it makes sense to go to her, unless you had anything else first.
No, we're going to go ahead and go with Nancy. Nancy is like, she's our Director of Health and Human Services. She has been working to keep us all as informed as possible around the most current updates on COVID, coronavirus, and she has become our COVID czarist. And she, like the rock star she is going to close out for us and start and talk to us about what she believes is the most important information for us to have right now, and then we'll move to questions. Nancy, take it away.
Oh boy, thank you so much. Kind words. I am well aware that we are really well into our second hour of this meeting, so I just wanted to be brief and tell you that whatever I wanted to show you, I don't know if, Chris, were you able to put the slides up? Can anyone see those?
Yeah, so I'm sharing the PowerPoint now from my screen. So if you want to just talk through it, just let me know.
I mean,
I'm here.
No worries. Yes. So the first slide is just a reminder that all of you should really make amazing use of this resource, because every morning I begin the day with the COVID tracker. lots of functionality, many ways in which you can do your own research and look into specific parameters that affect your constituents, where you live, et cetera. Probably the second slide is one of the most important. It certainly makes visually, even if you don't understand anything about slides, it makes a very powerful impact visually to show that if you look at the blue, we are clearly at the other end of that curve. The transmission rate is going down, not very rapidly, but consistently. And it was very, I was mindful of the fact that a month ago today, when we last spoke, we were having on average 879 new cases of COVID-19 per day. Whereas now we're down to less than a sixth of that rate. As of today, if you look at the tracker, we have 148 new cases in the Bronx. That's just for the Bronx. I'm only focused on the borough. The fact that the blue shaded areas are so high is because there's actually a tremendous amount of testing, and we are continually expanding testing in the borough. We have just posted on the borough president's website all of the city, state, and private places where people can get COVID testing for virus, PCR, antibody. Those places are multiplying, in particular because we remain an epicenter and a hotspot in New York City, other than in Queens, which is the other place where COVID is still rampant and numbers are increasing. The Bronx still has high numbers, despite the fact that if you go to the third slide, if you look at the daily data, we are going down all the time. Occasionally there is a small pulse, an increase, whether that reflects increased testing or opening of new sites. That's, generally something we can't tell just from a single day worth of information. But by all indicators, what the city is using, we are going down across the board in all of those indicators. And I'm hopeful that a month from now, when we meet again, that we will be unpaused and in the process of, reopening essential businesses, and maybe some of us even returning to our offices, as government workers are considered essential. So an important thing about this week as well, New York City released an entirely new data set where they showed COVID-19 cases in a very comprehensive map by zip code, an interactive map. You can click on any zip code and get a wealth of data. What was problematic about that is that for the borough, and somewhat surprising, is that there were 3 zip codes that really stood out significantly in the Northeast Bronx, Pelham, Throgs Neck, and certainly 10475 Co-op City, that showed that they remain really huge hotspots for the Bronx, where the transmission rate is still high. What's interesting of note is that yesterday there was also a really comprehensive and interesting news piece from ABC News about Co-op City. It was called like a city within a city, and it was a discussion of how Co-op City and other places that have an incredibly high density of either urban, rather NYCHA housing, or in this case, high-rise housing, that they continue to struggle and still have very high rates, some of which are very much underreported. So that brings me to the next slide, which I segregate out as of today, what's available, the data across the 5 boroughs. You could see the numbers for the Bronx. We're at 43,418 positive cases. Our transmission rate is now below 30%. We're still hovering around a third. And yesterday in the governor's report, they also reported that there were areas of the Bronx that had positive cases in the percentage rates that were above 40%, 43%, 37%. We are still, behind the rest of the city, but are, improving. So the one thing I did want to note attention to, since we did mention roughly a third of all of the fatalities in the Bronx are still from nursing homes and from senior citizens. That's theoretically one of the reasons why in co-op there's a very, very high transmission rate. And they think that the numbers are grossly underestimated right now. There were 1,500 people that were confirmed, for example, just in those complexes. What's important to note is that when you look at nursing homes and the way that they report that data, and we mentioned that on the last call, is that when they report known fatalities, they always say confirmed, COVID fatalities. For the Bronx, at the most recent report, that was 2 days ago, on the 19th, they showed 260 confirmed cases of COVID. But if you look at what were considered the presumed cases, people who didn't necessarily have or didn't get in time to get a positive test, it is more than double that. So, it's sobering. We should always keep that in mind, that when they say there are 40,000, confirmed positive cases, if we think about how this is played out just in nursing home communities, it could likely be double that. And that means that we should continue to encourage everyone, ourselves, our friends, our families, our neighbors, and members in our community to continue wearing masks. It is absolutely crucial. Yesterday I went to the Belvis testing site, which is one of the sites that was recently opened for NYCHA housing residents. And the last two slides, if you want to show them, Chris, they are just where the Bronx testing sites are. It's also on our website. It's important. We had an event with the borough president, and although people wore masks because it was a salute to, healthcare workers as well as to first responders, fire, sanitation, and police officers, there was not sufficient social distancing. And you may notice, even from social media, people were standing close together, and there was a lot of contact. So I urge all of you to be mindful of that and of the numbers. And that's it. It was my pleasure to get to speak with you and to see you all earlier. Sorry I got bounced off. And I hope that you continue to stay well and be careful. Be safe.
Thank you, Nancy, as always. A lot of information and very comprehensive. As I speak, we'll do the same thing we've been doing. We will ask that you go. In fact, actually, we'll do something a little bit different for efficiency's sake. We'll ask everybody to look and make sure that your hand is not up if you do not have a question. And if you do have a question, and make sure your hand is up, virtually, that is. So virtually, look in the participants list and see it. On that list, you'll see your name, which is probably first. You will raise your hand, and it will show up next to your name. And if you have a question, you will lower your hand, and it will disappear if you do not have a question. Okay, so hopefully everybody did that. And I will turn it over to Chris for hands.
Yeah. So it looks like there aren't any hands up. There's one question in the chat from Ken at CB5. So I'll just read that one. Nancy, he's asking, is there a map of the city MD urgent care sites? So yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Yes. Actually, there is, and it's interesting because early on, before we even were aware that a lot of urgent care centers, because they're private, privately owned, privately run, there are many urgent care centers, all of whom are walk-in, and they do testing as well. And their data gets reported from the labs. They use the same labs that other places around the city use. So if you actually just search Google City MD Bronx, you will see that there are 10 locations. 9 out of the 10 are functioning at the moment. If you call them up, you will hear that the first thing that they say when you get on the phone is, if you are calling for your COVID test results, please push 1. So we know that, and there are many others like them. So that means there's a greater network of testing in communities than are publicly announced or that everyone is aware of. And also Montefiore and some of the other hospitals do have outpatient clinics. They also do testing outside of the hospital ER. So that's good to know.
All right, thank you, Nancy. John Dudley's hand is up. So John, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. See, how you doing? I had
Well,
seen
thanks.
good. I had heard something and may have even seen a report where the governor had made some announcement with respect to antibody testing and increases or one of the highest percentage of increased antibody testing which affected communities was in Morrisania.
Yes,
Is
yes.
how do you read that assessment or fact as it relates to new cases for the Bronx? In other words, is there any relationship to the fact that Morrisania has experienced the highest percentage based upon antibody testing, individuals that may have had it and now the antibodies are in their system, related to new cases?
Right. So, the antibody testing it's important to note that there's no time frame on that. You can pretty much say definitively that the person has had some exposure, but not how long ago. And I think that in terms of where the state had set up testing, in that area, that was one of the more recent walk-in testing sites. A lot of the people there do not drive cars and use public transportation almost exclusively. And so that was I think, so there's two things there. That's potentially one of the reasons why there were a lot of, positive cases. I don't think that their fatalities are out of line in that zip code with other areas where the rates are significantly higher. One of the things that I leave those kinds of analyses to public health officials who really know how to crunch that data. So, for example, recently when we had found out that there were these 3 zip codes that were remarkably high transmission rates, and people were trying to figure out why. Is it the type of housing? Is there a lot of public housing there? Is there, what are the factors? And in some cases, there are no common threads. There are just pockets where the rates are high, where people may or may not be in, very close proximity in like big high-rise housing. But in some cases, at least in the 10469, for example, one of the only factors that stood out that was different than all the others was that they had like 8 nursing homes within that zip, whereas in many of the others, there were just 2 or 3 nursing homes. But, is that a causative factor? It's hard to say. You really need to look at a lot of things and do very sophisticated analyses. We don't do that, at least not me personally, but I am very interested that down the line, the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, when they do those community health profiles, every year they collect data from thousands and thousands of residents, and they do those kinds of hypothesis testing, and then they provide data, but that's always a year later. So a year from now, we'll be able to look back and see what were the differences between the different communities in terms of all of the things that they measure in order to assess health of a community, and not only social determinants, but also economic and policy, issues that contribute.
That would have, yeah. Right. I was just curious to know whether or not the higher percentages of antibody testing, even though we can't determine how long that individual may have been affected and recovered, but whether or not there was any determination that that indicator related to, in part, new cases, new positive cases. That's what I was just wondering.
No, I mean, maybe actually when I get off the call, because I'm in my car right now, I had to, leave where I was before. So I am going to go out of interest and take a look and see what, if you want, you can also go to the New York City site and look at that zip code map. And as you pass your cursor over all of the different zips, there are pop-ups that give you number of positive cases, number of fatalities, what the percentage rate is. You can find some very interesting data.
Gotcha. I got it. Thank you, Nancy.
Be a citizen scientist, yeah? Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
You're muted, Chris.
Yes, I was. Sorry. That's it for raised hands for Nancy.
Thank you.
And then there was one announcement that the staff member from Councilman Jonai's office had dropped into the chat. I'll just read that real quick. It was a brief one. Farah Rubin at the council member's office had to leave the meeting a little while ago, but left a message saying, wanting to announce they have a weekly town hall event at 4 p.m. on Friday this week, tomorrow. And to call or email to RSVP 718-931-1721. And the email is mjonai, which is MGJONAJ at council.nyc.gov. And again, that's a domestic violence town hall that the council member's office is doing. So just wanted to share that info. I think from chat and hands raised, that's everything.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for sticking with us, staying on. I think that even separate from our technical difficulties, we had a lot of meaty information and to give out, and I think we were successful in doing that. Before we end the call completely, I want to just remind everyone about the census. It's not over. It is still a topic that that is near and dear to every Bronxite because it means resources. And as community members, community board members, and representatives from other offices, we know these numbers are critical to not just funding, but resources and resources that are linked to transportation, that are linked to education, that are linked to many, many, many aspects of our daily lives here in the borough. So an accurate count is more than just something we would like. It is a necessity. We are nearly halfway, 50% to complete the count, but that does not mean that we can stop. That means that we are only halfway and we need to double, triple, quadruple our efforts to get to a 100% count. Some people say we can't do it, but guess what? They've said the Bronx couldn't do a lot of things. How about that? So we're gonna go ahead and move toward getting our numbers in, making sure Bronxites are counted. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank our staff. Thank you so much for everything that you do to put everything together. All those who came on. Thank you, John, for that hand clap. I'll give you guys a little hand clap as well. Everyone does their own part and then some to keep the borough president's office engine running up to speed. And thank you again. And Chris, without further ado, you can you can end this one. This is one for the books and the record.